Hello, and welcome to today's session of Pod Presents. My name is Angela Stopper, and I'm your Campus Chief Learning Officer. Today, we're going to explore the true nature of burnout, what it is and what it isn't, how it differs from stress, and the neurological and psychological processes involved in burnout. To talk to us about this very timely and very important topic, we are so thrilled to bring Tess Brigham. Tess is an expert psychotherapist, certified coach, author, and Tedx speaker. She specializes in helping adults discover their unique paths in order to go out into the world and make an impact. Tess is a vital resource for those who are feeling stuck, uninspired, or uncertain by where they are in life. Based right here in the San Francisco Bay Area, Tess has over 20 years of experience helping thousands of people find their purpose, develop their confidence, and create a life that they're excited about. We are again so thrilled to have Tess here to talk to us about burnout, and more importantly, to talk to us about what we can do to stop burnout from impacting us negatively and impacting those in our professional sphere negatively. Tess, thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to have you and hear from you on this very important topic.
What I found from my years of experience working with people, all over the world, the country, but primarily here in the Bay Area is that we tend to see burnout, stress, anxiety, experiencing these things as being a sign of weakness. This has been very much this American story of, you go out on your own and you do it by yourself, that individualistic idea that we've been carrying around. And what I find is that most people, instead of addressing the burnout themselves, instead of just like what's going on with me and asking themselves, they either spend way too much time and energy fighting it, like, no, 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 that's not how I'm feeling, denying anything's wrong, or they feel like, I just need to suck it up. This is life, I'll just deal. It's okay. Or they feel like, oh, I need to sell everything and move out of the country. And the thing is that then we're told, okay, so if you feel this way, all right, if you push past all those feelings, okay, so the next thing to do is create a wellness plan. Well, okay, I'm going to create a wellness plan. You go online, there's a million and one things you can do. And so, which is very helpful, but it gets overwhelming really quickly for people. So what happens is we get ourselves stuck in this like shame burnout cycle of not feeling good, feeling burned out, feeling stressed out, not really achieving the things that we want to achieve, beating ourselves up about it. Okay, maybe I'll do a wellness plan, creating a huge giant wellness plan that takes way too much time and puts more on your to-do list. Then that doesn't really quite work out, and then the cycle continues. And it kind of just leaves people feeling really, really stuck in this place. So what I like to do is, instead of giving you like the top 10 tips on how to manage burnout, I really want to get into, this talk is very much about what our society and the rise of technology and how that's affected us. Some of the unconscious pressures that we put on ourselves around these things. I'm going to get into the biology of what's really happening with you when we feel burnout and fear. And then finally, I'm going to get at the end, I'm going to give you some strategies that you can use to develop a plan for yourself. So let's get started. So as I said, I'm going to get into what exactly burnout is, what it is and what it isn't. It's different than stress. They are interconnected, but they are different. And then I'm going to get into, how did we get here? How did we get to this place that we're in right now as a society and a world? And then finally, what you can do about it. So what exactly is burnout? Well, burnout, it's a form of exhaustion. And it's caused by, this constant feeling of overwhelm, of pressure. And it's a result of excessive and prolonged stress over a period of time. So burnout just doesn't happen like that. It very much is this slow burnout, because we all know, right? If we felt the burnout right away, we would do something about it. We would address it, or it would be a big wake-up call for us to do something different. But what's so hard about it is it's slow. And then one day you wake up and you're overwhelmed. And so these are some of the symptoms of burnout, which is emotional exhaustion and dysregulation and depersonalization. And you can see from this list that this isn't just, I'm a little stressed. or I can't sleep at night. When you get to this point of burnout, you essentially sort of feel kind of dysregulated from yourself. You kind of feel like you're watching yourself live your life and you're kind of just going on autopilot. Um, I've been talking about burnout for years prior to the pandemic and now. And what's really interesting is these are some very recent statistics about NAMI, as the National Association of Mental Illness. There's some really interesting stats about how we're feeling. And what's interesting about this is that 50% number at the top, that was the same number that it was during the pandemic. And it was the same number as after the pandemic. So I think a lot of us see the pandemic as, oh, this was this difficult, stressful thing. Now that it's over, shouldn't the stress be away? But you can see that people are still very much feeling this. They're still feeling the pressures of everything that's going on. And then this last one, I think, is very interesting because you can see that older employees are feeling less stressed. Younger employees are feeling stressed. Now, it could be that some of these stats could be like where young people are and what's happening in their lives, but there definitely is when they do these kinds of studies, there's definitely young people showing how they feel far more stressed than the older generations. So what is the difference between burnout and stress? So stress is your body's natural, response to both internal and external stimuli or pressure, right? And we need our stress. Stress is important because it prepares us for challenges. It gets us out of bed in the morning. It gets us running across the street, right, when a car is coming towards us. And that's great. And exhaustion is a normal part of stress, but it doesn't necessarily equate to burnout. If you're exhausted, but you still enjoy your work, then that's not burnout. It just means you're overextended. Burnout comes when you are so overextended and you start to develop a hostile attitude towards work. You go from trying to do your very best to the minimum. And so it creates these global responses to things like, oh, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this better? And you can see very quickly how that's that one question you ask yourself around, like, what can I do? How can I do this better? Is something that you could simply ask and then go, oh, it's fine. Okay, just keep moving and keep moving forward. So I want to get into really what's happening to us biologically. And I'm going to talk about stress, stressors, and the stress response cycle. And I highly recommend this book called Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle, because I thought that it's written by these two sisters, and they did a great job. It's geared more towards women, I will say that much, but they do a great job of really digging into the science and the research of why people are feeling so burned out, especially women. And so this quote from them is very important. So dealing with your stress is a separate process than dealing with the things that cause you stress. So let's start by differentiating these things, right? There's stress. There's internal stress, what you're feeling inside of you. These are things like body image, identity, memories, the future, right? These are these internal. And then there's external stressors. Those are things like work, family, relationships, time, money, cultural norms, that kind of thing. And then the stress response cycle is the chain of chemicals inside of your body that react inside of your body when you are feeling stressed. And so this cycle that we go through when we feel stressed, this is an evolutionary adaptive response. So no part of when we get stressed, no part of that is, random or coincidental. It's very much about our bodies, because if you take nothing away from this today, the most important thing that you can take away is that we were not designed for this world that we live in. We were designed for survival. That's it. We were not designed for happiness. We were not designed for meaning. We're not designed for anything else. We certainly need each other and need connection in our relationships. But at the end of the day, those relationships are truly about survival, because once upon a time, without those relationships, you could not survive. So our base response to everything is survival, right? So, and that this system worked really well once upon a time, many, 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 many years ago, right? So once upon a time, many, many moons ago, right, you might be bebopping along, maybe you get separated from your tribe, from your group, and you see a lion. So what do, right? We see the lion, you feel panic. You get a cold chill under your skin, uneasiness, because your amygdala, your lizard brain, has recognized that there's a threat. And what happens in that moment is our bodies release hormones and all kinds of neurotransmitters and signals that change the systems in our body. Your body, right? Your heart beats faster, your breath is deeper and faster, your muscles tense, your sensitivity to pain reduces, your attention is alert. All of your systems know this is an emergency and I need to escape this lion. So your entire body and mind have changed completely because of this perceived threat. So you see the lion, what do? Well, you run, right? You're running. And when you're running, you're using all of these neurotransmitters that are floating in your bloodstream. You're using the stress response to solve the problem that it presents itself. So, and what happens, right? You either get, unfortunately, eaten by the lion, or you get back to your tribe and together you defeat the lion and great, you're safe, you feel amazing, you're so happy to be alive. And now you've completed the stress response cycle, all of it. So let's say if you didn't, what would happen if you didn't run? What if you saw that lion and you picked up a gun and shot it? Okay, great. The lion is gone and the stressor is gone, but you didn't address the stress response cycle. So burnout is what happens when stress is a cycle that happens in your body, and burnout happens when we get stuck as opposed to going all the way through the cycle. So to deal with your stress, you have to complete the cycle. So the problem that we have today is that we encounter a lot of obstacles every single day that create stress, and we never truly, sometimes we do, but most of the time we never truly complete this cycle. We encounter things all day long that create these stressors, but just because we might have dealt with the stress, handled the phone call or the meeting or whatever it is, those chemicals, those neurotransmitters, those hormones are still floating around in your body, and that is what's contributing to your stress. So why can't we complete this cycle? There's various reasons, but these are the most common reasons why. And it's not that you're not completing the cycle because you don't want to. It's simply because of where we are in our world today, we can't. So, chronic stressors create chronic stress, right? So every day, even if you get through all of your stresses today, you're going to have more tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. So we are very used to going from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing with all of these neurotransmitters in our system. The second one is social appropriateness, right? Because a lot of times we can't just deal with the stressor and then get on a bike and pedal for 30 minutes. It doesn't work like that, right? You have to finish the meeting. You have to get to the next meeting. You have to go pick up your kids. You have to do this. You have to do that. And then finally, it's a safe thing to do. I think a lot of times, walking away, smiling, walking away, backing down is the smartest and safest thing that you can do. That is what you need to do for survival. I'm going to get into more of the what to do at the end, but I do want to say that this is very important because I've talked a lot about these hormones and neurotransmitters in your body. So that's what you have to get out of your body. That's completing the stress response cycle. And what they found from the research is that really nothing is going to do it as well and as fast as somewhere around, they say 20 to 60 minutes. I say about 30 minutes of some kind of cardio. It can be walking, it can be running, it could be any of that kind of stuff, but that is always going to give you the best bang for your buck. So if you hate exercise, there are other things you can do. I mean, there's things like hobbies and spending time with family and other ways to burn off these chemicals. But this is the one that's really going to help you. If you really feel like you have a lot of stress, this is the one that's going to help you the fastest. All right, so let's talk about how did we get here? How did we get to this place that we're in right now? Because the rise of burnout is several different factors. I've mentioned the pandemic, which absolutely, but what I've also found is there's lots of other things that have been going on for a while now. So one is blurry boundaries. Pre-pandemic, I would hear from my clients all the time about how they really just had no sense of, should I be working? Should I not be working? Because what's different about the world that we live in today than when I was first left college was that, your boss, your manager, people have ways of getting hold of you. My first job out of college, I worked in an office in San Francisco. We worked it was very small, 9:30 to 5:30. 5:30, we would shut off the lights, lock the door, and we would go in opposite directions. My boss had no way of getting a hold of me unless I was at home and she called me and I picked up the phone. And so knowing all that, right, she never called me. She didn't bug me. And so I very early on was taught how to have these very strict boundaries between this is my time and this is work time. And even though after that, my first career was in Hollywood and I went to Hollywood and we worked very, very, very long hours and all of that. But even if I was leaving that office at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, my bosses still weren't calling me. My bosses still could not get a hold of me. I did not have email at home. And so this is one of the big things that's happened. It started with when millennials entered the workforce, which is that it made it so that it became okay for people to kind of, it's okay to reach out to an employee. It's okay to ping someone on a Saturday. And what I would hear a lot of times from young people is they would get this text from a boss on a Saturday and they didn't know what to do. Do I respond? Do I not respond? Will I get fired if I don't respond? What's going to happen? And so the thing is that older generations, people my age or maybe older, might say, well, come on, figure it out. You can do that. But you have to remember, like, especially if you're young, like 24, 25, 26, I don't know if I could have stood up to my boss or said no or pushed back in that way. So what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of young people kind of struggling. And then we've been seeing this with millennials as they get older and older and older. So it's been hard for us to really be able to set boundaries around work time and me time, and it's getting more and more difficult. The next one is piggybacking on that, which is the I should be working mentality. So because we can work all the time, people feel like unless you're doing something else that's super important, unless it's like I'm dealing with my kids or I'm making dinner, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, then you should be working. And this is one of the biggest things that I hear from people is they say, well, I know I should shut my laptop down at 7, but I don't, because I did that once and then I stopped and I just sat there and I felt terrible and I hated myself and it was just awful. So I might as well just go back to work. And I understand those feelings, but you're feeling awful because this is something new. And anytime you do something new, it's going to feel difficult. It's going to feel weird. And a lot of times we mistake our discomfort as being, oh, no, I shouldn't do that, versus like, no, this is a good discomfort. Like, yeah, this is a new pattern. So this is going to feel weird and uncomfortable. And you may spend a lot of time thinking about, I should be working, I should be working, I should be working. But eventually over time, if you continue to do that, you will notice that voice in your head, it will get softer and softer and softer. And I often say, like, resisting the temptation to like check your work emails, to, do all this stuff, right? We have these devices in our hands and it's like, telling someone stop checking your phone it's like telling a sugar addict with a plate of donuts, like, don't eat the donuts. It's hard. It's really, really hard. So the next one is, we weren't built for this. We were not built for this modern world. We keep trying to compete with machines all the time. And it's interesting if we think about 20, 30 years ago when we talked about, technology. What is technology going to do for us? What's the internet going to do for us? And remember, the big sell was always like, it's going to streamline things. People are going to be working less. People will be working 16 hours a week. all of this stuff. And what's happened, right? Yes, it has streamlined a lot of processes, but it's also made it so that we now have expectations for each other that we are machines, right? Just because you can send a text message in a second doesn't mean someone has to respond in a second. And what happens is that people, we are feeling like we have to respond right now. And other people, and even if we don't, or we say, okay, we're not, the other person feels this way. So we've created these expectations for ourselves and expectations for other people. And so I want to describe a little bit about sort of what happens in your brain. I talked about the stress response cycle. Those are the neurochemicals in your body. That's what happens in your body. So what happens in your brain when you get overwhelmed is this, right? You have all of this, people are coming to you, you got emails, someone's calling you, your kid is, crying. There's so much stuff coming at you at once. And what happens is that we have these two parts of our brain, the prefrontal lobes and what's beneath the prefrontal lobes. So the prefrontal lobes that are there, they govern executive functioning. So executive functioning is anything that's decision making, how to prioritize tasks, time management, right? And so as long as your prefrontal lobes are in charge, you're good, you're fine. So beneath the prefrontal lobes are the parts of the brain that are devoted to survival, right? This is the center that governs basic functions like sleep and hunger and desire, breathing, heart rate, emotions. So again, when you're doing well, these two things operate together perfectly. But when we're confronted with making another decision or another crisis or another difficult person or client that you're dealing with, what happens is that executive function, those prefrontal lobes, they go danger, 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 danger. We're in trouble. We're in trouble. We need to shut down. And so what happens is our brains, they kind of get back into that place of the fight, flight, freeze, right? It either fights, so you start to, start yelling at people. You either freeze and you're staring at the screen, not knowing what to do or where to go, or you flee. You're like, I give up, I procrastinate, I go, right? We get into this survival mode. So the prefrontal lobes, the part of your decision, the part of your brain that's making decisions, it's saying, listen, there's this fear here. You need to be scared. We can't make any more decisions, And so what happens is you're no longer able to make healthy decisions. You're no longer able to relate to people very well. And so this is what's happening when you have all this stuff coming in and you get to that place where you're right, however it shows up for you. Again, we go back to that narrative that we tell ourselves that there's something inherently wrong with us, that we can't handle these things, that, and the thing is that it's not normal for you to be having demand after demand after demand after demand to the point where you feel this place of stress or fear. And then the last one is, this is getting better, I have to say, which is glorifying this hashtag hustle culture. This used to be, I think, much more in pre-pandemic. Things have changed a lot, but, we definitely have this narrative in our culture where we believe that people who work all the time, that work, I slept on my office floor. I didn't go to my kids' parties. I did this. We see those people and we celebrate them, especially here in the Bay Area with all the tech and everything, right? Well, all these tech billionaires that talk about all the things that they did to build their tech company. And we revere that. People flock from all over the country to live here in the Bay Area to work in tech. And it's over the years, I've met so many of these people, and it's very interesting to hear that because they believe that this is the way to be successful, is you have to hustle. And we see people that don't work a lot or don't work as much as being kind of lazy or bad. And so this has become this narrative in our culture where we believe that you should be working all the time. The busyness, people that are busy, right? They are superior. And that's not necessarily true. And I mean, I don't want to get into it too much, but right, there's something about the busyness. Like, what are you not dealing with? What are you not looking at? But because you are busy with work, which is an okay addiction in our country, in our world, right? That's okay. You're glorifying, glorifying this behavior. And so the other thing happens too, which is that there's also this belief that we tell people that if you're not successful, if you don't make a lot of money, then therefore you're not hustling enough, which we all know isn't true, right? There's so many factors that go into these things. That's not true either. But you can see that from all of these different things that I've shared, there is a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. There's a lot of, I'm not doing this right. I'm not performing the way I should. There's something inherently wrong with me. And that's not true at all. Your brain and body is reacting just as it was designed to react to stresses. It's just we as a culture, as a society, we have to catch up and we have to start doing this differently. So I want to move to the last part, which is what can you do about it? Like, how do you address this? So the thing is that, right, we all know what to do. That's not the problem. Everyone knows that exercise, meditation, spending time with friends, going on walks, like we all know these things help us. And we all know that they're good for us, but we don't do them. And we don't do them not because we're lazy, not because we're don't want to, because of two things. It's our belief system around what we believe is right or not right, or what works, or what we should or should not be doing. We get stuck in that place of how this wellness program or how I'm going to address my stress. We get stuck in that place. And then the second one is that we adopt things that aren't really truly going to work for us at all, or maybe, isn't feasible. And again, we also try to take on too much too fast. So there's two strategies that I want to talk about to address burnout. One is the mindset shifts that you need to make. And then the second one is finding what works for you. So mindset shift number one, which is you have to start setting some boundaries. So boundaries is something that's been talked a lot about in our world today. More and more it's become something that people, it's a word that is thrown out a lot. But if you're not quite sure what boundaries are, if you think about a fence between you and your neighbor, right? That's a boundary. It's a physical fence. It divides your part, your property and their property. So boundaries in many ways are like invisible fences that we put up and like a guardrail for ourselves. And sometimes boundaries are things that we've, told people about or explained to them. And other times boundaries are just things that we set for ourselves that we don't need to tell anybody about, but that we need to hold on to. So, right, shutting your laptop at 7 p.m. every night, unless there's a massive emergency, that's you setting a boundary around work. And the person that calls you and calls you and calls you and calls you at 8 o'clock that night, right? You not picking up the phone, that's you setting a boundary. And then, talking to them the next day and explaining, listen, I shut everything down at 7. So if you need to get a hold of me, it needs to be the next day. So here's the thing about boundaries is that boundaries are your friends. It is a good thing. It's your way of being able to tell people, this is how I want to be treated. This is how I want you to see me. So setting boundaries for the first time ever, it's really, really uncomfortable. And people tend to, beat themselves up about doing it because they feel like they're being selfish or rude or mean, but you're not at all. So as I mentioned earlier, with people who tend to, right, they try to create this boundary around shutting their laptop at 7, and then they shut the laptop down, and then 7 comes and, right, they feel uncomfortable and they don't know what to do, right? So yes, that is going to feel, setting boundaries, doing those things for yourself for the first time, second, third, fourth time, many times, is going to feel really, really uncomfortable. So just because you don't feel like you can relax those first couple times or week or 2 weeks, however long it takes you, doesn't mean that it's not working. It is working. It's a good thing. So boundaries, the other thing about boundaries is that, we can we can set boundaries, but really what trips most people up is sticking to the boundaries, right? So no one's going to help you stick to your boundaries unless you go and get an accountability partner or hire someone to make you do that, right? So boundaries, this is what trips people up is that they see boundaries as something that is about another person, and it is about other people, but really it comes down to you. It's about you and what you want, and then you have to stick to them. And that's, again, it's not easy. Because what will happen is that you will get those phone calls at 8 o'clock. You will get those text messages. You will get all of those things. And even if you explain it to people, people are still going to push your boundaries. And it's going to require you to get really firm on, okay, no, I'm not going to push this anymore. I'm not going to do this. Which is why this piece is so important, because back to what I was talking about before with the hashtag hustle culture and I should be working and all of these mindset things, we have been stuck in this mindset of work, 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 work. I need to be working technology. This is what's going to make me successful. This is what's going to make me, feel good or feel better is money and all of that kind of stuff. And it's very easy to get stuck in that place. And it feels like setting any kind of boundary is, oh God, I can't do that. I can't possibly do that. And so that's why these mindset shifts are so important, because it's very hard to change or create new behaviors if you don't believe that they're inherently going to help you in the long run. If you don't believe it's what is going to work for you. All right, so let's move on to the next mindset shift, which is redefining what success means to you. And I talked a little bit about this in the last time, right? It's like getting out of the hashtag hustle culture, stop valuing yourself based on how much you work or how much money you have. Let go of the American dream, which really the American dream, if we really stop and kind of break it down, wasn't quite the American dream because it wasn't America, it wasn't for everyone. And you want to focus on what you want, the dream for your life, and what is that going to be? So assuming that if I reach this goal or that's going to make me happy, believing that having a fancy title or more power or more money is going to make you feel good or make you feel more satisfied. We all know that, at a certain point, more money doesn't really change things for people all that much. And research has shown, right, what makes people truly happy, what creates success and a successful career for people is having an engaging and meaningful career, right? So high quality jobs, they have a few things in common: flexibility, stable schedule, fair wage, healthcare, retirement benefits, opportunities for skills development, safe working conditions, and having a say in how things are done. And so when you're thinking about work and your career and what you want for yourself, you want to think about it less in terms of what are these outward things that I keep attaching myself to, and how do I refocus on, what's going on inside of me, what's going to work for me, what's going to make me happy and want to wake up every day and not get the Sunday scaries. So another mindset shift. You have to embrace your humanness, because we are human. Stop competing with the machines. Stop responding so quickly. Stop doing these things. Like, don't buy into it. Your brain needs to daydream. We have something piped in constantly, whether it's, from our phones or from, watching a YouTube video, listening to a podcast. Now I'm on this device and that device. We need to daydream. We need to wander. We need to, right? Daydreaming helps us integrate all the big ideas and all the thoughts that we have for the day. It kind of integrates, right? It allows us to kind of think and reflect. So part of this is you have to embrace your humanness. And so what that means is that when lunchtime comes around, a big mindset shift for a lot of people that's very hard to make is, no, you need to get out of the office and go eat somewhere. or you need to take your lunch and go somewhere else away from your desk, that you don't have to, that you working through lunch isn't, yeah, maybe that's what a machine can do. Maybe that's what is the most efficient, but you as a human being don't operate that well over time if you continue to never have a lunch break, if you don't sleep, if you're not eating well, if you're not exercising, if you're not having time by yourself, eventually, or with friends, eventually these things are going to, they're going to catch up with you. And that's another thing that's going on in our world is we've really, because of technology and everything that's gone on, we really don't value these things as much. We don't value, the pandemic has created a lot of separation from people now that so many people are working from home. And so we don't value these things that make us, that, are unique to us as people, and that importance of that. And, oh, that person only sleeps 4 hours a night. Aren't they great? Someone who sleeps 9 hours or 10 hours, we think that, oh God, what's wrong with them? I would hate to be them. But that's not true, right? Like, you need your sleep, you need to eat, you need to embrace yourself as a human being. And then this last one is you have to have faith and you have to be curious, because in order to change, you have to trust. You have to trust that if I make these changes, then there will be something on the other side of this that will be beneficial to me. And you have to be curious. You have to get out of that shame and judgment place for the people around you who are maybe not working, or, their working styles and how they're doing it and how you feel about it yourself. And you've got to stop mentally beating yourself up every time you take some time off, every time you're not working as hard. You have to start being kinder to yourself about how you think about your work and your behaviors and your life in general. So I'm going to go to strategy number 2, which is this. You just need to find an approach that's going to work for you. And that's really it. And, I always say that the wellness industry, which is like $1 billion industry, there's just too much information out there. I've been working with people for a while now. And when I went to grad school, like when I was studying to be a therapist, like there was no social media or barely the internet. Like, I'm not that old, but like there was the internet, but it wasn't what is today. And so, once upon a time, we needed information. Information was powerful, right? Now, what's happened is that we have too much information. And a big part of our lives now is learning how to, what am I going to tune out and what am I going to focus on when it comes to information? And you also have to let go of whatever your beliefs are about what is right or good, right? Good means getting up at 5 a.m. and meditating, exercising, reading, journaling all before 7. That's not true. That might work for someone. There's no size that fits everybody, and that there isn't one right or wrong way of doing this. It's really about you figuring out what's going to work for you. So how do you do that? Well, I always tell people, start by being a bit of a detective. Learn about what works best for you. So I'll have clients a lot of times do an audit of their day. And so every hour, 9 o'clock, this is what I did, and this is how I felt about it. 10 o'clock, this is what I did, this is how I felt about it. This is the feeling, and this is how I felt after, or whatever. You're basically going to start auditing work days and a weekend day. You want to do, at least 3 days so you can get some data points of what's going on here. And you want to, once you have all of that information, you want to take a step back and look at it and go, okay, based on what I'm seeing here, what are the things that are exciting? What's exciting me? Like, what are the times I'm happy? What are the times that I feel drained? What do I need? Like, what changes can I make that will make me happy and healthy? And then this other one, like, what are my values? What do I believe in? What is true to me? What's important to me? Am I a manager and I'm managing a lot of people, and I've just looked at my life and I've realized that I don't really get to manage people that much, or the meetings are too short, or whatever that is. And if it's a value for you that you want to, right, be a very hands-on manager, right, that's important too. Understanding what's important to you. How am I going to do this job? And what's interesting about this is people will kind of look at me and go, okay, I don't know what I'm going to learn. And I cannot tell you how many people come back to me. I had one client who it was so simple, but she could not see it, where she had this meeting like smack dab in the middle of the day, and it always created so much stress. And so she had all this anxiety about it. And then she was like, you know what? I'm the manager. Guess what? I'm going to move that really early. I'm going to do it this. I'm going to get it over with. And she was like, oh my God, that changed everything. So sometimes what needs to change isn't huge. It can be really, really small. All right. So you want to figure out what's best for you. That's number one. And then the second part of it is that you want to start small, take action. You got to do something and be consistent about it. So, when I say start small, I mean small. There's a guy down at Stanford by the name of BJ Fogg. He has a book called Tiny Habits. He's got a whole program called Tiny Habits. You can look it up. He will do this Tiny Habits program with people like for free. You can sign up for a 5-day program. And his whole theory was, and it's backed by science, is that tiny habits are the way to go. It's the best way to develop habits. So he was someone who he would say, if you wanted to start flossing, the best thing to do is you pick an anchor habit, which is brushing your teeth. You're going to do that regularly. And then you start by like flossing 1 tooth. And then you floss 2 teeth and then 3 teeth. Or if you want to start a workout regimen, every time you get up to get a glass of water, you do 3 jumping jacks. And what he found from his research, and I've done these exercises myself, is you'd be really surprised. Like, oh, wow, a lot of jumping jacks today. So that's really what that's sort of this idea behind tiny habits. So I don't know if necessarily that works best for everybody, but what I tell people is you want to start with something that feels challenging but doable. 3 minutes of meditation a day, trust me, that's going to feel like a long time in the beginning. And then you just start increasing it by a minute every week, month, however you want to do it. Exercising for, 10 minutes a day. We start way too big. And I know that the big changes, the big sweeping like home makeover and, Biggest Loser and all those things that we see are very exciting. But in order to be successful and for you to not feel like you're just putting one more thing on your to-do list, it has to feel manageable. So taking action, that's huge. Insight's great. It's great to have insight into why you're doing what you're doing, insight into how you live your life. But if you don't start taking action, if you don't change the actual behaviors, nothing's going to change. You're just going to be aware of it a lot more. So you've got to do the thing. And it's about figuring out for yourself, what do I need to do the thing? What do I need to say to myself? What do I need to push myself? Do I need to hire someone? Do I need an accountability partner, right? Like, what do I need to take action? And then finally, it's consistency. It's over time, right? One yoga class, doing one thing here, that's good, but it's not really going to change things for you. So you really want to start with thinking in terms of what's something small that I know I can take action and be consistent on. And that's where you start. One thing that I didn't mention is that, sometimes, and this energy audit will help you with that, because a lot of times it's less about what you need to start doing versus what you need to be doing less of. So you might find in your life that you're doing too much, or you're doing things for other people too much, or this thing that you're worried about. I hear this all the time from people who have a million things going on in their lives, and then they give me this laundry list of everything going on, and then they'll tell me about and then I got to clean out my closet, and then I got to do this, and then I got to do that. Right? It's like, you're not going to get this is not your priority. Your closets are not your priority, and that's okay. You just had a baby, or this happened or that happened. Let go of the closets. Let it go. And it's pretty amazing what happens. So it doesn't necessarily need to be something that is with another person. If it is, that's great, because I think that will help you tremendously. But the other part of it too is just shifting for yourself what your expectations are for you as a person. And then finally, just some last thoughts. Everything that I've been talking about today is really about the individual, right? And so, but the other part of it too is burnout. It's a systemic issue. I've talked a lot about our society and how we've gotten here. And you know, it means that we're all in this together as people, as organizations, as a country, as a world. So what I always tell people is think about how can you, as you're thinking about how you're supporting yourself, how can I support the people around me? What do I need to do? Do I need to listen a little better to someone else's boundary and really take it seriously, even though I might be annoyed by it? Do I need to stop judging my coworker for leaving at a certain time? Do I need to sort of check myself a little bit and ask myself, what are these beliefs that I've taken in with the world and society that I'm not only judging myself, but judging other people? How do we do this together and support each other? Because it is very hard to change in a vacuum. It's very hard to change completely on your own. We need the support of each other. So I encourage all of you, have conversations with your team members, your managers, your leadership, about what's going on? How do we do this differently? What can we change? What are small, consistent things that we can do together as a group? And that might be something that's really, really life-changing for all of you, is just simply making a few changes and then just being a lot kinder to yourself about everything that you're feeling. So that's my part. I want to stop sharing. And I know I see questions in the chat. Not quite sure, Angela, hold on, I can't see the chat.
Hey, Tess. Yep, there have been a lot of kind of support for what you're talking about. There's been a lot of people sharing some tools and suggestions on things that you're talking about, how they can have some of those daydream moments. And I think if anybody has questions, please feel free to come off mute or raise your hand or put them in to me. I'm happy to ask them on your behalf. One thing I saw that wasn't really a question, but could maybe get us started, is somebody was asking about when they do try to take those daydream breaks, they find their mind wandering back to work anyway. So what I'd say is, notice it and, practice not doing it. But what other tips might you have for folks as if they find themselves in that situation?
Yeah, that's always a good place to start, and that's really what meditation is, if you get down to it, is learning that you're noticing, I'm having a thought, I'm going to put it in a little bubble and let it go, and I'm not going to judge it. Now, all of those steps are really, really hard, but you're going to when you're daydreaming, you're going to practice that. You're going to practice, I'm having a thought about work, I'm stressing out these things, I acknowledge that, okay, I can't do anything about it right now, or do I need to deal with this right now? No. Okay, let me just let it go. What that does for you, and this is this is the core of why mindfulness and meditation, you hear people like myself talking about it constantly, is that the research has shown that it is hands down the best thing for anxiety, because what it's teaching you how to do is it's teaching you how to notice your thoughts, let them go, not buy into them. Just because you have a thought doesn't make it true. And then in a non-judgmental way. And that takes a lot of time to get to that place. So don't not daydream, just keep redirecting your thoughts. And if you do it for 3 minutes, great. You've done your meditation. Perfect.
Thanks. Thanks so much. Joshua, I see your hand up.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. Thank you, Tess. You kind of emphasized some of the stuff I'm doing, but need to keep working on. It's an ongoing process. And I got the props out to UC's thing about the Calm app. I think maybe it was my doctor using the Calm app. So I've set a pattern plan in my calendar. I just want to uplift and center using your calendar as a tool. So I've color coded all my different community orgs, my 9 to 5, but I do have strict break 11 p.m. That's a wrap. And also just by using my calendar, I can delete things or check them off, and that feels really good. So since I've accomplished a goal, or I can, as I mentioned to friends, it's electronic. We don't have to scratch and erase, which is fine. I can literally move it to a different time. So I really appreciate your giving me, Tess, those reminders. And I'm going to keep giving a shout out in the chat to the San Diego UC San Diego fire cams. I love just looking at the fire cams. If I want
Mm,
to check out rain near the Oregon border, I can go up to a tower cam and look at rain, or I can look over into Tijuana for the day.
yeah. Oh,
So
wow.
anyway, enough of me. I know that much. Thank you, Ted. Thank you,
Thank
Angela.
you. Thank you.
I love that. Really good idea is using your calendar to help make sure you're scheduling those break times in,
Hmm.
finding some websites that are fun for you to just distract your mind. Question came through for you about, putting so much of yourself in at work, so much physical and emotional energy, there's nothing left over. And how do we work on caring less at work, or how might we do that?
Yeah. I and this is a little more complicated because it's so much of it is about, right, you, the person, and how you are and how you operate in the world and your job and where you are in your career, right? Like so many of these things, it's hard to answer. But what I would do is I would try to get back to the basics of what's within my control and what's out of my control. Because I think the things that are out of our control are the things that make us crazy, right? And so one thing that I've seen and it's very easy to get wrapped up in, right, talking badly about the job or badly about your manager, or you're unhappy with this or you're unhappy with that. It doesn't mean that you can't have feelings and emotions about things, but it's really focusing on, okay, this is my job. There are things about it I like. There are things about it I don't really like. There's aspects of it that are out of my control. Okay, fine. I accept those, and accepting them for what they are. Like that's just, my boss is always going to be really anxious. He's always going to spin around and be anxious. So what's within my control is how I react to that person. And okay, I'm not going to let this person's what do you want to do? I don't want to let this person's anxiety get the best of me. So okay, how do I handle that? And again, every situation's a little bit different of how you do that. But the hope is that, again, it's going to be difficult at first, but the hope is over time you'll feel less emotionally exhausted because you're not buying into that anxiety or getting yourself wrapped up into it, but you're focusing on what is within my control. What can I do? Um, and so that's the thing, like, are you caring, right? When you think about your work, you have to be realistic with yourself around um, what does it mean to be a good employee, right? Are you a perfectionist? Are you putting less pressure on yourself to do everything perfectly and all the time? Sometimes there's this thing they talk about with parenthood, which is called like the good enough mother. Like kids do not need a perfect mother. You do not need to be cooking your kids every meal and doing all this stuff, being like June Cleaver, if anyone knows who she is. But you don't need to be that. You just need to be good enough. You just need to show up. So sometimes it's a little bit of like, just be good enough. Be a B student, B minus. That's okay. You're still doing good work. It still doesn't mean that you don't care. It just means that you're managing your energy.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Tess. I think there is, I talk about it in some of the classes that I teach here at Berkeley about this toxic perfectionism.
Hmm.
I think a mutual friend of ours, Michelle,
Yeah.
wrote a book around
Yeah.
embracing your flossomeness, and flossom being flawed, awesome, flossom. Um, Michelle's a friend of Tess and I, and she talked about good enough is sometimes, great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's people that I'm sure, and I think what it's hard is you're at this institution where everybody is, I'm sure everybody's really smart, everyone's really talented, everyone's right. And so I understand that feeling of feeling that. But again, it's still not, again, you can't compete with the machines. You're human. So you've got to embrace, like, I'm human. This is all I can do. And maybe if this person next to me can do more, fine, fine, fine. You know?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tess, for being with us. Thank you for sharing these great tips. Thank you for, I hope, giving folks, three nuggets that they can take
Mhm.
out of this and say, these three things are things that I'm going to practice. They're things that I'm going to do differently. And remember what Tess said. If it doesn't make an immediate impact, that's natural. Keep at it. We can't make these habits. We can't break these cycles with one yoga class. I love that when you have that on your slide. Keep at it, keep working. Know that here at Berkeley, we appreciate you. The work that you do is so incredibly important. everything that you do as a staff member changes people's lives every day. So as much as you take care of your students and your faculty and the people on your teams and the people that work for you and your colleagues, take care of yourself as well. Thank you all so much for being here. It was really great having you with us, Tess. So fun to.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. It was great.
And Tess, will you send your slides over so I can send to
Oh, of course. Yes.
Fabulous. So
Absolutely.
everybody, I will send the slides out. I'll also send a recording of our call for those that maybe want to share these wonderful insights that Tess had with some of your colleagues and people in your professional network.
Thank you.